The earth trembled under the weight of the host, a sound so deep and foreboding that it seemed to echo from the heart of the world itself. The skies darkened, heavy with clouds that reflected the turmoil below, and the air grew sharp, crackling with an energy no living being could ignore. Across the vast plains of Beleriand, a silence fell, broken only by the distant wails of those who fled. It was the calm before the storm, the final breath before the greatest war the world had ever known began. The War of Wrath was not just a battle, it was an ending, the culmination of centuries of sorrow and defiance. Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, had cast his shadow over Middle-earth, twisting it into his own dominion. The free peoples had fought against him in countless skirmishes, their victories fleeting, their losses etched into the bones of the land. But this war was different. The Valar themselves, the ancient guardians of the world, had answered the call at last, bringing with them the might of the West. The armies of the Valar, led by Eowyn, herald of Manwë, descended upon Beleriand like a tide of light. Their banners caught the wind, shimmering with the symbols of Valinor, and their voices rang with songs of defiance. The elves of Aman, shining like stars, stood side by side with the Maiar, beings of immeasurable power. Behind them marched the hosts of men who had remained loyal to the cause of the light, their faces grim and determined. It was a sight to behold, a force so overwhelming that even the mountains seemed to bow in its presence. Morgoth was not unprepared. He had gathered his legions, monstrous beings born of his corruption. Orcs poured from the pits of Angband, their cries shrill and full of malice. Dragons, their scales glinting like molten gold, rose into the air, their wings spreading to blot out the sun. Balrogs, demons of flame and shadow, took their place at the forefront, their whips cracking with unholy fire. And then there was Morgoth himself, the great deceiver, the fallen Valar whose malice had no end. He did not cower in the depths of his fortress, he watched, waited, and unleashed his fury. The battle began with a roar that shook the heavens. The armies clashed, and the earth seemed to shatter beneath them. Orcs swarmed like locusts, their sheer numbers overwhelming the first lines of the Valar's host. But the Maiar moved like storms among them, their weapons cleaving through the ranks with blinding light. Dragons descended from the skies, their breath turning the ground into rivers of fire, but the elves of Aman, armed with the gifts of the Valar, met them with unflinching courage. Spears and arrows, enchanted with ancient power, pierced even the mightiest of scales. The Balrogs fought with a fury that matched the sun's wrath, their whips slicing through armor and flesh alike. But against them stood the Maiar, their ancient brethren, who fought not for dominion but for the world's salvation. The clashes between these beings were cataclysmic, their battles carving scars into the land that would never heal. Fires raged, consuming forests and plains, and the rivers of Beleriand ran black with ash and blood. It was not long before Morgoth unleashed his greatest weapon, the winged dragons. Until that moment, no one had seen such creatures. They came with a fury that turned the tide of battle, their immense forms casting shadows that swallowed entire battalions. Fire rained from the heavens, and for a moment, even the mighty host of the Valar faltered. But hope was not lost. Eärendil, the mariner who had braved the seas to summon the aid of the Valar, appeared above the battlefield, his ship Vengelot shining with the light of the Silmarillion. With him came Thorondr, Lord of the Eagles, and his kin, their wings cutting through the dark skies. The clash between Eärendil and Ancalagon the Black, the greatest of Morgoth's dragons, became the stuff of legend. The sky itself seemed to tear apart as the two fought, and when Ancalagon fell, his massive body broke the peaks of Thangorodrim, the mountains that guarded Morgoth's fortress. The tide turned, but the cost was unimaginable. Beleriand, the land that had borne so much beauty and sorrow, was breaking. The violence of the battle split the earth, and the sea began to rise, swallowing everything in its path. Yet the armies of the Valar pressed on, their resolve unbroken. Morgoth, sensing his doom, retreated to the deepest depths of Angband. But even there, he could not escape. Eowyn led the final assault on Angband, his voice like thunder as he called for Morgoth to face justice. The Dark Lord, once so proud and invincible, was dragged from his throne, his crown shattered, and his ironclad form bound with chains. The Silmarils, the jewels that had been both his desire and his undoing, were taken from him, their light burning his hands with a pain he could not endure. Morgoth was cast into the void, banished beyond the world's reach, his cries echoing into nothingness. As the battle ended, the survivors looked upon the ruins of Beleriand with heavy hearts. The land they had fought to save was no more, swallowed by the sea. The rivers, forests, and cities were gone, leaving only memories of what had been. The war was over, but its scars would remain forever, etched into the hearts of those who had endured it.